Welcome to John and Dave's occasional podcast. So we've pretty much exhausted the stock of things we wish we hadn't done.
But if you think that means you've heard The Last of Us, we've still got plenty of nonsense to discuss.
Right, today we are going to talk about something that people moan about a lot.
Okay, I
It's
can
a
think of a few
frequent
things.
topic of conversation. It's the weather.
The weather, and as Brits, it's something that we can talk about for hours, really, isn't
We
it?
can.
The weather.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, what would British people talk about if they didn't have the weather?
It's always a go-to if you've just met somebody, and it could be someone you know very well, or even not know very well. But by the time you got over the introductions, I think sometimes one of the first things you might say is, "Oh, terrible weather today," or
Yes.
"Great day today,"
Yes.
weather-wise, isn't it? Yeah.
So if you lived in a country where the weather was just relentlessly hot,
Yeah.
you could say it's hot again, couldn't you?
Yes,
And that's
yes,
about the
yeah,
end of your
yeah.
conversation.
What do you think of the weather today? Well, I
Yeah.
think the same as yesterday, really. And
Exactly.
probably will do tomorrow.
Yeah. Now, Dave,
Mm.
what is the hottest you've ever known? Not in this country, anywhere.
The hottest I've ever known, personally, anywhere, was in Dubai.
Right.
And
It would be
we
hot.
we were visiting. We were coming back from Australia. One of our 2 visits there to see relatives. Very fortunate to be able to do that. And we decided, because people had said, "Oh, Dubai's a nice place to go to. We'll stop there," and we did. We had a I think it was 2 or 3 days there as a sort of a stopover, and the problem was that we were there in the height of summer.
What sort of temperature was it?
And
there?
we were talking in the mid to high 40s
Oh my God.
centigrade.
That's hotter
And
than
that was,
anything
I
I've
mean,
ever
what
known.
we noticed was that people were going and walking on the beach. It was a beautiful sight, they were walking on the beach at sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
And it was hot then. It was pleasant. It was nice. It was nicely hot, but you could feel the heat growing and growing. And within a sort of half an hour of walking on the beach, the temperature had shot up a lot, and so we went back to the pool, and and I think I had a quick swim in the pool. It wasn't even a long swim in this swimming pool at this hotel, and I managed to get myself sunstroke because it was so hot and so relentless that it was on the top of my head as I was swimming. I'd never hat on or anything. And the 3 days we were there, most of the day, I spent in bed, feeling really bad.
That's hotter than anything.
It was just
I've
ridiculously
known
hot.
low 40s,
Mm.
and funnily enough, I think possibly as hot as I've been was Canada.
Yes.
Which is obviously
Yeah.
goes from one extreme to
Yes,
the other.
yeah.
I've never been to Canada in the winter, and I don't want to really because it's too bloody cold. I mean, minus 23.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had extremes in this country. What about the
Oh, yes.
coldest? I mean, presumably you've been skiing. I've never
Yes.
had a winter holiday anywhere.
The coldest I've ever been
Cold.
was a skiing holiday, and it was right up high in the Italian Dolomites, I think it was, Livorno, I think it was, and I remember going out at night. We went out to go to a restaurant for a meal, and really wrapped up, and they had one of these temperature gauge things, and that said minus 23 on it.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
but I can remember thinking, it's really, really cold, but it's dry. It's a dry cold, which is what we don't tend to get
Well,
over
no,
here.
because
isn't it?
apparently the worst is heat with humidity, isn't
Yes,
it?
yeah.
And have you been to Singapore? Because that's what
Yes,
people say.
yeah, I've been to
It's
Singapore,
really
yeah.
energy sapping, isn't it?
It certainly can be. Yes, yeah. And it's and when we were in Australia in the rainforest area, that was very humid as well, and you feel damp and
Would you rather, if you had a choice, would you rather have hot or cold?
hot.
Yeah, me too.
Always, yeah,
Yes.
always hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, we've got a number of friends who've done like cruises up the fjords and stuff like that, and I look at it and think it looks very pleasant, looks very spectacular, but I don't really want to be in the cold for a
No.
holiday if I can.
No.
Unless I'm skiing was a different thing, but to go purposely to see the sights somewhere that's really cold doesn't really appeal to me
No.
at all.
The worst weather in my opinion, is rain.
Mm.
Rain is really depressing.
Yeah.
You just get wet and cold and soaked. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
And of course, we get an awful lot of that in this country.
We do indeed. Yes, I mean we've had a lot recently, but yeah, I was just thinking, you know, because we've often talked about music and things, and if you think about the songs there are about rain, and you know,
Yes.
and depressing, they're quite depressing songs usually if it's about rain.
Yes, they are.
And yet, you know, you don't tend to get as many depressing songs about snow or about fog or
No, there were
something
jolly
like that.
ones.
Yeah,
about
they're
snow.
quite, you know,
and happy
yeah.
ones about sunshine.
About
aren't
sunshine.
they?
Yeah. Good day sunshine. Here
Yes,
comes the sun.
That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have a favourite season of the year?
I think summer is my favourite season in that I've got a sort of a mental image of a hot sunny days in the summer.
Mm.
Now, obviously, living in this country, that's not always the case.
No.
Well, recently it has been not too bad, but I do like the spring. I like the fact when you start to see
That's
the
my
new
favourite.
life coming. You know,
Yeah.
little buds of things start to appear, and the garden starts to perk up and things like that. And I think that's a really nice. It's a foretelling of what's about to happen.
Yes,
Always,
I think
yeah.
that my favourite month is May
Mm.
because you can get some really lovely weather in
Yeah,
May. And I think
yeah.
to myself, we've got all of June, July,
Yes.
August,
Yes.
September, all those months ahead of us where you get
Where
nice,
is that?
nice weather.
I think in this country, I mean, because we have some wet more than cold winters a lot of the time now, don't we?
Yeah,
It is the thing you look forward to.
Yeah.
Knowing that soon things will be on the up and the weather will improve. I mean,
Yeah.
you think back to when we had the first COVID lockdown and we had that fantastic summer.
yes.
And
that's
so
right.
we weren't as affected by it because we said, "Oh, it's all right. We've got to stay at home. That's great,
Mm.
but we can go outside."
The second one was
Yeah.
more grim, wasn't
Exactly.
it? That was in the
Exactly.
winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, we remember the temperature or the weather extremes of 1962-63, don't
Yes,
we?
exactly.
The winter that we went through there.
Yeah.
I've got fond memories of it though.
I
have
can
to
remember
say.
certain things about it, but presumably we didn't go to school, did we?
We didn't. No. I believe, if I remember rightly, someone said it started to snow on Boxing Day. I think they
Yes,
said.
and it carried on through February.
And it
didn't
carried on, and I can remember that we had where we were in Bedminster at the time, and I was at junior school then, still primary school,
Yeah.
and I can remember it came to the first day of term, and we had a message, and I don't know how we had the message because no phones and that, somehow the message got round
With a cleft stick.
that the school was closed. And
Yeah.
and it remained closed for I think for another 2 weeks if I remember rightly, but I can remember that joy of knowing that there was lots of snow to play with outside and to go on sledges on. It was a bit cold and your hands got a bit cold, but you weren't thinking, oh, it's a snow day. They basically said, right, the school's going to be closed for the week,
Fortnight.
and then the next week. But then at the end of that, it was quite disappointing to then have to go back with there's still
Yeah.
snow around.
You see,
but
I
they-
don't remember going to school. I do remember it being intensely cold,
Mm.
and I can remember playing in the snow. You remember the house we had at West Bay,
Mm.
the beach, and the snow piled up to the second floor window.
Wow, yeah.
It was probably about 10 or 12 feet
Mm.
deep there at the back. And the sea froze.
Well, I mean that's amazing, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
The sea froze, yeah.
Yeah.
That salty water.
Yeah, that seems an extraordinary
But
winter, doesn't it?
I do remember going back into school, and I think I was milk monitor or something at the time. We had to bring the little 3rd pint bottles in the
Yes.
crate and put them by
Because they popped up.
because they
didn't
popped up. Yeah, they
Hmm.
popped up,
That's right.
and we had to put them by because we had like a fire, not a fire, but a stove in the middle of the classroom, to
Yeah.
the side of the classroom, and we had to put the crates of milk by that, so that by break time it had melted, defrosted, and was actually slightly lukewarm then. So you had this like lukewarm defrosted milk, and it was
Yeah.
it wasn't the greatest. I mean, I liked milk at that time, so it didn't worry me. But there were children who didn't like it at all.
I wonder how they got things like food through, and
I think a lot of stuff was dropped, wasn't it? I remember that being on the news, them showing some helicopters dropping
Yeah.
stuff in West Dorset, and certainly dropping hay bales for cattle and
Yeah.
sheep and things. that were in the fields. But also, I mean, they must have had snow ploughs and things that cleared some of the main roads,
so.
and then. But I remember, I think I remember my dad and others walking off down from Gerrard's Green to get milk and bread from the shops in town. So maybe the centres were clearer than the outer bits that we were on, really.
I suppose so. Yeah.
See, I mean, you'd have at West Bay, you'd have been sort of out of the way a little bit down there.
Yeah,
wouldn't you, really?
Exactly. Because we wouldn't have been able to drive into town or anything. Yeah, because I mean, our childhood, you know, we were used to cold houses, weren't we? Didn't have central heating.
Yeah, no.
And you mentioned earlier, didn't you, something about the cold windows icing on the inside. I clearly remember that.
Yeah.
I mean, when we bought the first house in Bridport, they had no central heating. They had no heating at all.
Yeah. It's amazing, really, isn't it? That none at all. Yeah. I mean, we used to have the house we lived in Gerrard's Green in Bedminster. That had like a Rayburn, I think it was. They got a Rayburn.
Yes, I remember Rayburn's. Yeah.
Which coal used to go into, and it was something where if we were cold, we would stand in front of it with a fire guard because we were quite young.
Yeah.
But and if you had a bath, you'd come downstairs and dry in front of the fire because that was the warmest place. And but it wasn't. Nothing was centrally heated at all at that time. Each room was individual.
And usually not fitted carpets, no particular.
And in fact, the room, the front room, which is like our best room, if you like, rarely went in there, and that was always quite a cold room. Yeah. Because the fire was never lit in there.
Yeah, and winters were colder then, so pipes. I remember pipes regularly freezing up. And, It's funny. And of course, that had consequences of things like chilblains.
Yes, chilblains. You don't hear people with chilblains these days, do you?
No, you don't really, do you?
Didn't you get that from putting them on hot pipes or something?
Well, I think it was poor circulation because your fingers were so numb that, and they were very, very itchy.
I don't know if I ever had chilblains. You used to get white fingers from the cold. And,
exactly,
and then, you'd be very brave and put them into warmish water.
Yes,
and
which is painful.
It was painful, but gradually you'd see the colour changing back in them again, wouldn't
That's
you?
right.
Yeah.
I also remember, the loo freezing up.
Oh, right.
The water
in
the toilet freezing.
Did you ever have an outside loo?
No, I don't think so.
I don't have any memories. I remember going to someone's house that had one, but I don't remember us ever having one. Now, I think that when I was born in Dorchester, I think the flat that or the house that my mum and dad had there may have had an outside loo, but we moved when I was 2, so I don't really remember it. Yeah. But I remember that we certainly had an indoor loo in Bedminster. But I do remember going to someone's house near Derby, I think it was, much later on in my life, when I was in my 20s, and they had an outside loo there, and their house still.
Must have been quite a forbidding thing in a frosty night or something.
That was the thing, wasn't it?
You wanted a dump or something to go out and sit in this.
To have to go out to it. I mean, it's no wonder people had gazundas and
I suppose you had a potty
under their beds, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you just in those days you just heaped up lots and lots of blankets and hiding beds, didn't you? And you were quite warm enough. Although I can remember, times like when I was first in London as a student, being so cold because the central heating in the place I was living would only go on for about an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. Being so cold that I would go to bed with all my clothes on.
Yes. I used to put on a collection of bobble hats, tracksuit, long football socks, gloves, and stuff. Because the bedroom I was in downstairs in that first house had no heating.
Sexy night attire, wasn't it?
No, to be honest, it was a sort of sexy night attire that by the time you got everything off, if you wanted to, because it was so blooming cold, you'd have lost the urge anyway, I think.
Probably.
So nothing would have happened. But no, I have vivid memories of dressing up to go to bed because it was so cold. Because at that time, of course, we didn't have quilts. We didn't have we call them continental quilters.
Yes, well, eiderdowns.
But eiderdowns, but we didn't have them as the only thing. It was always blankets and sheets, wasn't it, on top?
Yeah,
blankets
which came untucked in the night.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if your feet came out the end, if
you
were tallish, then you'd wake up and your feet would be freezing cold.
Happy days.
Oh, absolutely! It made us the people we are, John. It made us the men we are.
Yeah.
as we turn up the central heating in our houses.
I know.
These
Yes.
days.
Well, how soft we all are, aren't we? But I can't say it bothered me. I mean, imagine. I mean, what I used to hate about going to work early in the morning was getting the car going. Scraping the ice off. I used to hate that. And leaving the car running for about 10 minutes while it tried to heat up, and then driving on ice and snow.
Ice and snow. Oh, I experienced that recently, of course, with the weather. But
yes,
no, it's a sort of thing that you dread having to do, isn't it?
Yes.
And you don't. I mean, obviously, if you can, it's horrible weather like that, you stay in. But sometimes you just have to do it.
Well,
and it's,
I can remember driving very, very tentatively over icy roads. Sometimes when I couldn't get to work, I had to leave the car and walk into work.
Yeah. I remember I used to have to catch a bus to work when I first started working in Birmingham, and that was in the days of I'd wait at the bus stop and it was either cold or raining or whatever, and it was quite nice usually because the bus would be quite warm, and you'd think, that's not too bad, but initially, of course, they were full of smoke as well because everyone was smoking.
Yeah.
So, eventually, I mean the times that I get on a bus and you get on downstairs and it was cold and I thought, God, this is cold, and someone would say, it's not too bad upstairs, the heating's working up there. So you go upstairs to be warm, but that's where all the smokers were then, because that became the smoking area. So how much passive smoking we did, I have no idea.
True, yes. I imagine our lungs will have recovered by now.
Oh yeah,
they regenerate, don't they? But
but it always seemed to me you'd think, if I was driving a car now in these conditions that we were in then, it was icy or snowy or whatever, I'd be really bit concerned. But it was almost like with a bus, I used to think to myself, I don't think buses really skid very much on ice and snow these days. They're heavy, they've got a really low centre of gravity, and I'd feel much safer on them than I did in a car sometimes. And also they were more solid, And, sometimes I suppose they did have accidents, but they always seem to keep going and travel okay through those sort of weather conditions.
I can remember a time coming back from Exeter, trying to get home, and Jackie and I we driving up the hill out of Honiton, and could only get halfway up, and then it just couldn't get the car any higher. We had to just leave the car at the side of the road, walk back down the hill, find somewhere to stay for the night in Honiton.
In Honiton,
and then go back the next morning and get the car, then it had cleared enough to be able to drive. Just abandoning the car at the side of the road.
I remember. I don't think it was smog exactly, but we used to have some thick fogs when I was growing. I remember trying to walk to school in thick fog.
Yeah.
But you literally couldn't see more than a few feet in front of your face.
No.
And I think we get fog these days. Obviously, I never think it's quite as thick as it used to be. Maybe it is the fact there isn't as much
cleaner
smoke.
Air.
The air is cleaner. The Clean Air Act has certainly helped with that.
Yeah.
I mean, smog itself was dangerous, wasn't it? In London.
Well, you get some very bad fogs going over Askers, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Where you could literally only, not see very far in front of you.
And you'd have to keep going, wouldn't you? And hope that nobody was halted in front of you.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the London P Supers that they used to get. My dad saying, I remember he was driving and he had particularly, and he had to abandon the car because he couldn't see where he was going, and he just had to stop at the side of the road and leave the car there.
And but some of those were the really dangerous ones, weren't they? They were the ones that had chemicals in them that actually affected people's health.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
which
that's right,
luckily we we came a bit later on than that, and we didn't really have anything like that, did we? I don't think. It was just fog. Almost,
yes.
Yeah.
So weather has it. I mean, did you ever suffered from SAD? Seasonal effects.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I think we both.
I think
do.
we all do in a mild way, don't we?
I think I think this year, with everything else, on family things and that, it makes it more intense, really.
Yeah.
And I think when we're talking about the fact that we like the spring and the summer, I think this period before it you can feel a bit down about it, because you're thinking, it's raining again, or we've had some snow, it's cold again, and it affects.
Well, that's just when I hang on to those things, and you look at you see that the days are getting lighter by a minute a time. Or something
yes,
like
yes,
that. And you see the first sort of shoots of plants coming up, and you should never wish time away, but I would be always glad to see the back of.
You do like to get through those bits,
January.
don't you? I mean, you're lucky in that, as you say, in that in February you have a birthday. I have one in March. So in those months, it's not. There's something to look forward to there. I think if you didn't have an event like that to look forward to, it would seem an even longer period of time between the end of the last summer and the new nice part of the year.
Yeah, I mean, weather just affects, not only our lives and our ability to get around and to work and all those sort of things, but also our mood. It is a major factor in one's life, isn't it?
Absolutely,
yeah. But we have to take what we're given. We can't do anything about it.
I think our sort of not negative outlook on weather is something that is because we live here in this country where the weather is, yes, it's a topic of conversation, but it's often a negative type of conversation.
Yes,
because it's something that we're not enjoying at the time.
Yeah.
I'm sure that if we lived in sunnier climes, we'd be far more upbeat about a weather conversation.
But some people are miserable whatever the weather is, aren't they?
I mean, I can imagine us saying, "Oh, do you remember when we were growing up and the temperature dropped from 23 to 20 that winter?"
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but as I say, we have to take what we're given. So,
yes, indeed. Yeah.